Good afternoon, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you again for coming back. Today is July the 14th, 2022. I have some news to share with you. I always appreciate your presence. So I will start with a video, FANA video, talking about uh, cooperation between North Korea and Ethiopia, especially cooperation between FANA Broadcasting Corporation and the ambassador representing North Korea. So I will start with that one, and I have also a couple of videos at the end of the reading material. One is U.S.-Israel cooperation or deal, especially against the Iran nuclear deal. And the last one is Sri Lanka successful protests against the government. So thank you again. Let's start what Fana is telling us about cooperation.
ኤምባሲ ከፋና ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬት ጋር በትብብር መስራት እንደሚፈልግ አስታውቋል። ይህ የተገለጸው ዛሬ በኢትዮጵያ የሰሜን ኮሪያ አምባሳደር እና የአፍሪካ ህብረት ተወካይ ቶንጉ ሲም ፋና ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬትን በጎበኙበት ወቅት ነው። አምባሳደሩ በጉብኝታቸው ፋና ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬት በይዘትና በቴክኖሎጂ የገነባውን አቅም ተመልክተዋል። በኢትዮጵያ ለሁለት ዓመታት ተኩል የቆዩት አምባሳደሩ ፋና ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬት በኢትዮጵያ ቀዳሚ ሚዲያ መሆኑን መገንዘባቸውንም ገልጸዋል። ዛሬ ጎብኝቻለሁ እና ፋና ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬሽን አሁን ለኢትዮጵያ እድገትና ለመንግስት ፖሊሲ አፈጻጸም ላይ ምን አይነት ሚና እንደሚጫወት በደንብ ተረድቻለሁ። በጣም ኳሊፋይድ የሆነው ሚዲያ እንደመሆኑ አወኩትና በዛ መሰረት እኛ ለወደፊታችን ከፋናው ጋር አብሮ መስራት ፍላጎት እንዳለን ለመግለጽ ወዳለሁ። ደግሞ በዚህ ላይ ብዙ እንደተነጋገረን ብዙ ስፍራዎች ያሉ ይመስለኛል። አምባሳደሩ በሀገራቱ መካከል ያለን የሁለትዮሽ ግንኙነት ለማጠናከር ሚዲያ ትልቅ ሚና እንዳለው ገልጸዋል። ለዚህ ኤምባሲያቸው ከፋና ጋር በትብብር ለመስራት መምረጡን አስታውቀዋል። Media is very important in developing and strengthening the bilateral relations. በሀገራት መካከል ያለን የሁለትዮሽ ግንኙነትን ለማጠናከርና ለማሳደግ ሚዲያ በጣም አስፈላጊ ነው። ሚዲያ የሚያስፈልገው የሀገራቱን እውነታ አጉልቶ ስለሚያስተዋውቅ ነው። ይህ የማስተዋወቅ ስራው ታዲያ የሁለቱን ሀገራት ግንኙነት እንዲጠናከር ያደርገዋል። ስለዚህ በቀጣይነት በጋራ መተባበር በሚያስችል መስኮች ላይ ተነጋግረናል። Future corporations that we can work together in the future. የፋና ብሮድካስቲንግ ኮርፖሬት ዋና ስራ አስፈጻሚ አድማሱ ዳምጠው በበኩላቸው ፋና እንደ ተቋም ከሰሜን ኮሪያ ኤምባሲ ጋር በትብብር መስራት በሚቻልባቸው መስኮች ሁሉ እንደሚሰራ ገልጿል። በተለይ የቴክኖሎጂ ልውውጥና የህዝብ ለህዝብ ግንኙነትን የሚያጠናክር ስራ የትብብሩ ትኩረት እንደሚሆን አስታውቋል። መረጃውን ያደረሰን አልአዛር ታደለ ነው።
Okay. So I'll come back to the other videos. So, cooperation between North Korea and this government-affiliated media, FANA Broadcasting Corporation. So this is another indication where Ethiopia is heading in the future under Abiy Ahmed leadership. You might already know that North Korea is the brutal dictatorship, very brutal, especially for free press and for freedom of speech for journalists to express. So I don't know what you know the direction of the government, the intention of Fana Broadcasting Corporation by cooperating with such brutal regime, North Korea, the worst dictator in the world. So it is an indication that the worst is coming for Ethiopians, especially for journalists, social media activists who are engaged or who want to engage to criticize the government. In North Korea, you cannot do this. Ethiopia is also just in a first step in that direction. So many journalists arrested, tortured, and treated. Now we are dealing with North Korea, getting how to crush opponent or anybody criticizing the government. Anybody. So that's a very indication of a danger coming to Ethiopians by this cooperation between Fana Broadcasting Corporation, government affiliated, already talking government propaganda, nothing else, is not expressing the pain, the grief of Ethiopians, just the government propaganda and dealing with North Korea. So that is, I want to show you we are heading in a very dangerous direction under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. And already we have seen the arrests and torture, the denial of justice for many journalists in Ethiopia. Thank you. So let's continue with other news. The ruling party's peace negotiation team holds first meeting. This negotiation team, I reported on that last time, 7 members to deal with the situation in northern part of Ethiopia. Ambassador Ridwan Hussein, security advisor of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, said that the 7 members peace negotiation team held its first meeting on 12 July. The Peace Alternative Main Committee held its meeting on 12 July. The committee has discussed and decided on its own course of action and a code of ethics for the discussion to be held under the leadership of the African Union. By organizing subcommittees, it has also divided responsibilities and begun its work, Ambassador Redwan tweeted. Announced by the ruling Prosperity Party on 27 June, the 7-member team that is expected to conduct peace talks with Tigrayan authorities is chaired by Demeke Mekonnen, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, and is composed of 6 other members, namely Ambassador Ridwan Hussein, Gideon Timotheus, PhD, Minister of Justice, Tamasgen Turune, Director General of the National Intelligence and Security Service, NISS, Lieutenant General Brahanu Bakele, Chief of Military Intelligence Office, former head of the Republican Guard, Ambassador Hassan Abdul Qadir, Coordinator, Prosperity Party's Democratic System Office, and Dr. Getachew Jember, Deputy President of Amara Regional State. The team was announced shortly after the Minister of Justice Gideon said that the ruling party's executive and central committee meetings put a direction to peace alternatives in a manner that respects the constitution and the national interest of the country and facilitated by the African Union. On June 14, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed told lawmakers that his government wants peace with everyone and revealed for the first time that a study committee has been formed under the leadership of Memo. But questions abound. Although the ruling party said peace talks were to be held under the facilitation of the African Union, in a letter addressed to President Macky Sall, chairperson of the African Union, and the President of Senegal on 14 June, Debretsion Gebre-Mikael, PhD, President of Tigray State, expressed reservation in the AU-led process. The silence of the African Union over the war and the atrocities perpetrated by the forces raged against us was a betrayal of the foundational principles of the Union. We have consistently condemned the failure of the African Union chairperson and his high representative to take a position consistent with their solemn obligation under the constitutive act of the Union, the protocol establishing the Peace and the Security Council, and a host of other commitments entered into. In the considered view of the people and the government of Tigray, the leadership of the African Union Commission has yet to redeem its failure and restore our trust, the letter said. Tigray has not yet issued official response since the announcement of the 7-member team by the ruling party in Addis Ababa. So that is the first about the first meeting of the 7 members of peace and negotiation team led by Deputy Prime Minister Memo and the Foreign Minister. So we will see how far they can go and how they're going to settle the issue in northern part of Ethiopia. But that will not end the country's problem if they don't solve the problem ongoing, the war ongoing right now in Oromia region between the federal government, all the forces from Oromia region against OLA and Oromo people in general. There is a legitimate concern and never resolved for many years. Oromos are still dying, still bleeding, still in a detention center, massively, thousands and thousands of Oromos in detention center. So they have legitimate concern unanswered, and some are, carrying the armed struggle against the federal government. The others are struggling against the federal government in a peaceful manner, and others are struggling silently. So Oromia is the land of war under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. So that should also be resolved. That must be resolved for Ethiopia to be a peaceful country, not only the northern part. And we don't have that much information coming out of Oromia region because of the internet shutdown and other media restriction, and the government media, FANA, ABC, and others will not report. Only they report the government propaganda against the Oromo people. That's it. They don't report the actual situation, what is happening. So that should be resolved if peace should, must, or the intention is to bring peace in Ethiopia. That must be resolved. The legitimate question of the Oromos, the legitimate demand of the Oromos must be resolved. If not, we will not have peace in that country. Biden immigration enforcement memo prioritizes family unity, replaces Trump guidance. U.S. law enforcement officers will ask when detaining immigrants in the country illegally whether they are parents or guardians to avoid separating families under a Biden administration policy launched on Thursday. The directive, an effort by President Joe Biden to reverse former President Donald Trump's more restrictive policies, also allow for previously deported parents or guardians to return to the United States temporarily for child custody hearings. Guidance issued in 2017 that didn't explicitly require officers to inquire about or record parental status or guardianship. Democrats, Biden, campaigned on a promise to build a more humane and orderly immigration system to counter that of Trump, his Republican predecessor. On taking office early last year, Biden prioritized immigration enforcement against those convicted of more serious crimes. As a result, arrests and deportation of immigrants living illegally in the United States plummeted compared with a year earlier. But federal courts in recent months have blocked Biden's effort to focus on serious criminal offenders, and Republicans have criticized the administration approach, saying fewer detentions and deportation have encouraged more illegal crossings. ICE Acting Director Ty Johnson said in a statement that officers will preserve family unity to the greatest extent possible. Some immigration activists on Thursday said the measure didn't go far enough. Heidi Altman, policy director at the National Immigrant Justice Center, which provides legal service to refugees and asylum seekers, called the memo the bare minimum. After taking office in January 2021, Biden implemented a series of measures to reverse what he called cruel and senseless Trump policies that separated thousands of children and parents at the US-Mexico border. Biden launched a task force to reunite families that were still apart. Credit Reuters. So that's, you see, elections has consequences. And every policy has impact on citizens and those who are interested to come abroad to the United States. And Biden is, approaching the immigration policy in a different way than Trump. Trump was very cruel verbally and in action and separating parents from children, all cruelties. And Biden is taking a different approach. You remember when Trump banned all travel from Muslim countries? This is a different policy, and this is a consequence of our votes. So we have to be careful. We have to get ready when the time is right to choose the right individual and put them in right offices, because every action impacts us as a citizens and those our families back home when we are try to help them or bring them over here. EU sanctions on Russia and the shipments to and from Kaliningrad. Press statement, Ned Price, Department spokesperson. We welcome the announcement by the European Union making clear how its member states will implement economic sanctions on Russia with respect to Kaliningrad. We appreciate the unprecedented economic measures that our allies and partners, including Lithuania, have joined us in taking against Russia for its unprovoked war against Ukraine. We applaud European Union member states, including Lithuania, for enforcing sanctions measures fully in accordance with EU guidance. It is important to note that there is not now and there never has been a so-called blockade of Kaliningrad. Using a variety of routes, passengers continue to transit between mainland Russia and Kaliningrad, as do all humanitarian shipments and most other goods. We should also not forget why economic sanctions were put into place, which was in response to Russia's unprovoked and brutal war in Ukraine. So that is the US State Department statement on EU sanctions on Russia. So many sanctions, so many measures taken, but never helped to end this brutal war Russia is waging against Ukraine. This is about uh, the candidates try to replace Boris Johnson, UK Prime Minister. So Rishi Sunak, top second round of voting in UK leadership contest. Former British Finance Minister Rishi Sunak won the most votes in the second round of voting to succeed Boris Johnson as leader of the Conservative Party and Prime Minister, as one candidate was eliminated. Sunak came top with 101 votes, followed by Junior Trade Minister and the bookmakers' favorite Penny Mordaunt on 83 votes, and Foreign Secretary Liz Truss on 64 votes. Attorney General Suella Braverman was eliminated with 27 votes. So this guy, if you see, I don't know, now he's on the top place to replace Boris Johnson. His name is Rishi Sunak. I don't know, maybe he's a Pakistani, Indian origin, I don't know. So that's all I have for reading for today. Let's see the two videos. One is on US Israel signing a deal against Iran's nuclear power, nuclear technology. That's, as I said, that issue is very serious. It could bring war, maybe third world war, if it's not dealt correctly or settled correctly. That's a very serious one. There we go. There we go. There we go. So let's see.
The second day of President Joe Biden's Middle East trip started with interim Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid. The leaders all smiles at their meeting. Top of the agenda, Iran. Signing a non-binding declaration reiterating the U.S.-Israeli partnership, America's commitment to Israel's security, and to ensure Iran would never acquire a nuclear weapon. The other main topic of discussion:
Israel's integration in the region, Israel's peace with its neighbors. These are essential goals. Tomorrow, I'll be the first American president to fly from Israel directly to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. That represents important progress.
Mr. President, you will meet with the leaders of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Oman, and Iraq. I would like you to pass them all a message from us. Our hand is outstretched for peace. We are ready to share our technology, ready for our scientists to collaborate and our businesses to cooperate.
Opposition leader Benjamin Netanyahu got 15 minutes of FaceTime, a man not used to taking a back seat during U.S. presidential visits. Netanyahu has worked hard to undermine his opponents, accusing them of being unstatesmanlike and unqualified to lead. But these images will no doubt work in Lapid's favor ahead of November's elections, Israel's fifth in 4 years. This trip is less about who is or will be prime minister, and more about Israel as a whole, its relations in the region, and countering Iran. Before heading to Jeddah on Friday, Biden is scheduled to stop at Augusta Victoria Hospital in occupied East Jerusalem, historic in the sense that it's the first time a U.S. president will visit a place in East Jerusalem away from the old city. He's expected to pledge $100 million to help Palestinian hospitals, but this moment from the press conference possibly won't go down well with the Palestinians.
Your visit tomorrow is Jerusalem, and you won't be accompanied by an Israeli official. Does this represent a change in your administration's view regarding the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and if East Jerusalem is part of it? Thank you.
Answer your last question is no.
Occupied East Jerusalem is what Palestinians see as the capital of any future state, an issue Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas may raise with Biden, who he will meet briefly in Bethlehem on Friday. The Palestinians know that this trip is not about them. A few economic incentives, yes, but there are no new diplomatic offers on the table to revive long-stalled peace talks. The American priority is to focus on wider geopolitical issues and encourage more Arab countries to normalize relations with Israel. Stephanie Decker, Al Jazeera, West Jerusalem.
Many Palestinians want the US president to demand accountability for Israel's killing of Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh in May. John Holman reports from occupied East Jerusalem.
This is the grave of Shireen Abu Akleh, the Palestinian-American journalist who worked for Al Jazeera. This cemetery was full of people for her funeral this May after she was shot in the occupied West Bank. She was famous already, but for a lot of Palestinians, her death embodied what they lived through, the possibility that they could be killed by Israeli forces with little follow-up or accountability. And now that's become a thorny issue for President Biden as he visits the region, and his administration launched an investigation into her death, but concluded that even though the bullet was likely fired by the Israeli military, it was without intention to kill her. Now, Abu Akleh's family have called that a whitewash. She was wearing a blue helmet and vest marked press when she was shot. They've asked to meet President Biden on this trip to air those concerns. The latest is that that's not going to happen. Instead, they've been offered a visit to Washington at some point. That's not going to stop the questions coming at President Biden, especially when on Friday he travels to the occupied West Bank. And on the route there, actually on the separation wall, there's gone up a mural of Shireen Abu Akleh to remind him and everyone else of her presence here, a presence that is still overshadowing this trip.
We'll leave the light on.
I think one more video.
Those who give us big stretches and small cuddles. The ones some of us said we never wanted, but now.
Okay, this is Sri Lanka.
Police versus the people on the streets of Colombo.
I think this was yesterday. I think.
Protesters who've come out in their thousands have no fear. Angry, defiant. committed to removing the country's leaders. Latest show of rage against the people they blame for creating Sri Lanka's economic nightmare. Sri Lankans want President Gotabaya Rajapaksa gone for good, and he has fled the country.
It may be the end of the Rajapaksas in Sri Lanka, but that's not enough for this crowd. They say they want the Prime Minister out too, and they'll keep protesting until he's gone.
They want to get inside the Prime Minister's office and will stop at nothing because there's nothing to lose.
We actually don't have a future in this country. How it's going to face, if this continues like this, actually there's no future for anybody in this country.
A state of emergency declared, the military given power to get Colombo under control. The protesters briefly took over state TV, telling the nation they haven't caused any damage, urging people to support their struggle. A struggle they're winning, taking control of the Prime Minister's office, a fourth government building occupied. Sri Lanka's politicians, no match for the power of the people.
Bad people, the politicians kill our country. We don't have any ethnic issues, any religious issues. We are united. We are strong. We are lonely people.
From street battles to songs, chaos and carnival in equal measure. A revolution like no other. The people are in control for now. A political dynasty has fallen. And while this situation drags on, there can be no solution to Sri Lanka's economic misery. Nicole Johnston, Sky News, Colombo.
Okay, so that's interesting, and we can learn something that when the people come together, there is no limit what they can do. They can achieve anything, including the removal of the powerful dictator like the president in Sri Lanka. That's the clear example Ethiopians should follow and should act instead of just fighting against each other, insulting against each other, trying to take advantage of each other. They should come together and, collectively against this failed leadership of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed or Prosperity Party. The leadership that can give you whatever answer comes to his mouth. When you say, I'm hungry, he tell you, go eat, banana with bread, where even you cannot afford to buy the banana and bread. Or tell you to eat the weeds. When you tell them you can't afford to live in the city because of inflation and house rent, blah blah, he tell you to move out and live in countryside where is many challenges too. So this kind of leadership, should not exist in Ethiopia, but it's there by using all the tactics, using the force, undercover operatives, the justice system, the federal police. For now, they are successful because Ethiopians are divided. They are not coming together collectively. They are not speaking with one voice. No. But if they do, they can kick him out from Arat Kilo. He will run away. He will run away. But they should learn from Sri Lankan protesters and from Sudanese too. Sudanese are also strong. If you don't do that, the suffering will continue. Inflation, high unemployment, international isolation, everything. The war, the ongoing war in Oromia. And the Wallo, The Wallo Oromos are also in a hostage situation. In a hostage situation. The Amara region is attacking them. Their militia attacking them. The Fano attacking them. They have no protection from the federal government. And it's worse than Abdi Ille tactics. Abdi Ille tactics used against the Oromos. Now the Olo Oromos are at threat of losing their life. Extinction, I can say. Too much intimidation, too much threat from the regional government. We're supposed to protect them. They are under hostage, and they are suffering every day, dying, and their property is destroyed, injured, detention, intimidation, because they have no protection. That's why I say Ethiopia under Abiy Ahmed is a very bad country. And there is an emergency rule still in Benishangul Gumuz. Nowhere is peace. There is a war, ongoing war in Oromia. So Ethiopians, they should find out a way to come together to remove this system. If not, the suffering of Ethiopians will continue, the inflation will continue, and we might see the North Korean style in full control after some few years. You know, they are looking for North Korea, they are looking for China, they are looking for Russia to build some kind of government control the voice of the people. So that's a very serious one. And on Biden trip, I wish he will be successful. The Palestinian issue is very serious. Keep coming back. Israel bombing, Israel expansion continue unless the two-state solution is implemented. This is a very serious one. Palestinians, in the long run, they will lose the entire country, entire land, if the expansion continue. They're talking about 1946. That's that talking about 1946, which is impossible, in my opinion. Impossible. There's too many settlers on Palestinian lands. So just do something. I know you are better than Trump, but you are also fear of the consequences from Israelis. And the Iran issue, also a very serious one, as I said, it could create war. So we need to settle that issue in a peaceful manner. So that's all I have for today. I will be back with other news and update. And I appreciate your comment, sharing, liking my videos, and be safe, everyone. So long.